True food sovereignty doesn't come in bags of processed feed. You won't build it using isolated concrete pens. The most expensive mistake a modern producer makes involves treating their animals as independent machines while ignoring the massive power of biological symbiosis. Today we dismantle that industrial mindset to design a living, ethical, maximum efficiency refuge. We're talking about integrating a master biological team. Chickens, pigs, rabbits, and ducks working in raw synchrony. When you combine the personalities, foraging instincts, and natural habits of these 4 species, you step away from being a simple breeder and become an ecological conductor. You'll see how the waste of one animal transforms into the nutritional feast of another, cutting your dependence on external inputs at the root. You'll learn to view resource harvesting from a perspective of absolute welfare, where each species fulfills a vital purpose while enjoying an environment that respects its wild nature. Prepping your land for this biological engine will change your harvest margins forever. Let's begin. To make this biological engine run, the first step demands rethinking your land architecture. Abandon the idea of conventional enclosures. Designing with the happiness and welfare of multiple species in mind means understanding how they move and what spaces they prefer to occupy in nature. We need to create habitable strata, leveraging both the ground and the vertical dimension of the paddock. The key to success lies in structuring coexistence planes, where the activities of one species boost the habitat of its neighbor, without generating competition for physical space or territorial stress. Picture a multi-level bioclimatic structure. Up top, you install elevated rabbit hutches built as ventilated high-altitude shelters. Rabbits thrive with good air circulation, kept far from ground moisture. These wood and heavy-gauge wire platforms offer a fortress against predators and keep the rodents in a dry environment, optimal for their respiratory health. Beneath these structures, you set up the scratching zone for your flock of hens. The dirt receives the manure falling from above, a nitrogen-rich material the birds process right away as they scratch. Hens, equipped with an endless digging instinct, turn this mixture day after day. As they tear up the dirt searching for insects, they accelerate the breakdown of organic material. This action prevents ammonia gas buildup and transforms the upper-level waste into a deep, dry bedding free of bad odors. It's an automated sanitation system driven by nature itself. While the rabbits rest in the cool, elevated breeze, the chickens maintain the soil hygiene, creating a perpetual sanitation cycle. Moving past the main structures, the design expands into the free rotation pasture. This is where the pig comes in, the ultimate biological tractor. Instead of confining pigs in stagnant mud pens, we grant them access to plots where the meadow requires preparation. Using their strong snout and massive body weight, pigs plow the earth, turning over clods in search of roots. This natural tillage aerates the soil up to 12 inches deep, prepping it for future forage crops. They oxygenate the terrain without destroying the microbiological structure of the humus. To complete the coexistence plane, we must integrate the biological water channels, the absolute domain of the ducks. These waterfowl need constant access to liquid to clear their nasal passages and maintain the waterproofing of their plumage. By digging shallow trenches that catch runoff, we create rustic, low-level pools. Ducks filter the muddy bottom, enriching the pond with their droppings. This turbid water becomes an organic liquid fertilizer that seeps via gravity into the adjacent pasture zones, closing the spatial design loop and guaranteeing all species thrive. Once you establish the infrastructure, the central challenge of rural economics falls on designing circular nutrition. The dependence model built on bags of concentrated feeds suffocates the producer's budget and limits the autonomy of the project. Zero-waste self-sufficiency requires understanding a biological rule. In nature, trash doesn't exist. There are only resources in a state of transition. By synchronizing the digestive tracts of our 4 species, we can create a vibrant ecosystem where internal biomass production covers the bulk of the refuge energy needs, ensuring continuous food year-round. The pillar of this circular nutrition starts with the strategic cultivation of green forages and aquatic plant protein sources. Azolla, a small fern that propagates by forming dense carpets on ponds, acts as a botanical miracle. This plant assimilates nitrogen from the air and boasts an outstanding protein percentage in its dry matter. Harvesting dense mats of azolla day after day provides a premium nutritional supplement for both the rabbits in their elevated hutches and the pigs, cutting your grain expenses to a minimum. Parallel to the aquatic production, breeding earthworm stands out as the most efficient recycling engine for the seasoned producer. Fibrous garden scraps, kitchen peels, and trampled forage go into composting beds populated by colonies of red wigglers. These annelids devour the plant pulp and excrete premium humus, ready to revitalize the cultivation zones. But their true biological value lies in generating an endless supply of meat protein. Worms multiply at an astonishing rate under the correct moisture, creating constant animal biomass to nourish the birds of the refuge. Free-ranging chickens and ducks possess the instincts of relentless hunters. When you toss a handful of live worms or scatter cultivated grubs in the shaded corners of the pasture, you awaken their wild foraging drive. The birds run, scratch with violence, and capture these fat-rich prey items. Replacing soybean meal with fresh annelids improves the nutritional density of the egg, gives the yolk a deep, dark color, and promotes flawless bone development. At the same time, we respect the gastric anatomy of the bird. Their gizzard evolved to grind small terrestrial invertebrates, not to process mountains of dry flour. The muscular action of the gizzard, filled with small stones and grit the birds pick up from the pasture, crushes the tough exoskeletons of insects and the muscular bodies of the worms. This mechanical digestion unlocks amino acids and essential fatty acids that synthetic feeds try to mimic but fail. A hen raised on a diet rich in live prey exhibits vibrant feather condition, a robust immune system, and an extended laying cycle. The pig, equipped with its omnivorous stomach, acts as the final sink of this uninterrupted system. It consumes the spoiled pumpkins, deformed tubers, and fallen fruits across the terrain. It possesses the perfect biology to harness leftover whey, converting residual liquids into dense muscle tissue. When you move the herd onto pastures, the rabbits graze days prior. The swine unearth the starch-rich roots. Thus, every plant calorie gets recycled without mercy, transformed into energy, and utilized in its entirety. This entire nutritional machinery would collapse without a rigorous preventative protection protocol. However, in a functional permaculture environment, routine antibiotics and toxic sprays stay out of the manual. Real sanitary resilience comes through active biological control, employing the very residents of the yard as sentinels of herd health. When you direct the hunting instinct of specific birds toward the parasitic pests of the environment, you forge an unbreakable sanitary barrier. Different species protect each other in silence, without depending on external veterinary interventions to put out invisible fires. The domestic duck assumes the role of undisputed sanitary watchman in the wettest strips of the property. Constant moisture provides a breeding ground for invasive parasites, and aquatic snails act as the intermediary vectors for severe threats, highlighting the liver fluke. This internal parasite holds the potential to ruin the hepatic tissue of young pigs and rabbits if they manage to ingest the encysted larvae while grazing near muddy banks. By granting the duck flocks first access to these fluvial channels, we unleash a relentless sanitation crew. By devouring these wetland mollusks without pause, the ducks destroy the key link in the reproductive cycle of the liver fluke, cutting the transmission chain dead. They protect the internal organs of the farm mammals by pure instinct, transforming a latent sanitary threat into high-density protein for the formation of their own eggs. The life cycle of the fluke demands the snail host to develop. Without the snails, the parasite perishes in the environment. Your waterfowl perform a relentless harvest on the vector, offering better pasture biosecurity than any chemical dewormer poured down an animal throat. On the other front, the hen executes a task of constant disinfection over the fresh manure mounds. Biting flies represent a source of unending stress. These insects deposit thousands of eggs day after day in the warm feces of the pigs. Here's where the mechanics of the chicken claws become an irreplaceable prophylaxis tool. By scratching with obsessive energy every pile of organic fertilizer in their search for hidden food, the birds scatter the wet layers, exposing them to the ultraviolet rays of the sun and the wind currents. This ventilation dries the biomass in record time and alters the temperature and moisture profiles, building a hostile microclimate for the incubation of pathogens on the refuge floor. The rapid breakdown prevents the formation of putrid sludges, but the deepest disinfecting effect comes from eradication by direct predation. The hen's eye functions as a fine-tuned radar to detect movement at short range. They locate, extract, and consume hundreds of whitefly larvae every hour, before they ever get the chance to leave the manure pile. The tangible result is a fresh, quiet agricultural camp. The functional integration feels palpable in every corner of the terrain. The pig breaks new ground. The rabbits provide fertilizer from the air. The ducks sweep the pastures to neutralize mollusks. The hens sterilize and deodorize the living soil. Each animal pushes its genotype to the limit, executing vital tasks of sanitation, tillage, and nutritional harvesting. The farmer abandons the fight against the forest to focus on orchestrating the biological flow. This is the threshold of food sovereignty in action. When you manage to mesh the digestive machinery and the territorial behavior of these four species, the farm stops being a drain on your wallet and becomes an abundance clock calibrated by pulse. Time flow in nature isn't linear. It responds to specific metabolic cycles and biological conversion rates. Understanding and respecting these anatomical rhythms allows you to structure an endless family pantry without forcing the artificial growth of your animals. We start with the accelerated cycles. This is short-term sustenance where rabbits and ducks reign supreme. The rabbit stands as a marvel of herbivore physiology. They transform low-value fibrous biomass like hay and garden clippings into lean muscle protein at an astonishing speed. Their short gestation cycle and prolific nature guarantee rapid replacements. This maintains a steady flow of tender meat on the breeder table with a minimal water and spatial footprint. Hardy duck breeds offer a fattening rate that challenges any other waterfowl. Their basal metabolism is designed to retain lipid reserves. They develop a thick layer of subcutaneous fat that insulates their body from freezing drafts. That same fat, forged by hunting small mollusks and filtering organic matter from the trenches, becomes an invaluable caloric resource for the winter months. Harvesting young males before their first molt ensures an unbeatable carcass quality. You take advantage of the absolute peak of their bone development curve. These two species, the rabbit in the elevated hutches and the duck dominating the flooded strips, grant you a rapid meat supply. They fill your freezer while the slower, more complex pieces of the system mature under the sun. The daily engine of this ecosystem falls on the cloaca and the ovary of the free-ranging hen. This bird defines living consistency. As they walk the paddock, scratch the wooded zones and hunt fly larvae, the hen ingests the mineral, calcium, and amino acid profiles necessary to assemble a perfect protein package every 26 hours. There's no rush, no thermal stress from confinement. This uninterrupted ovulation cycle secures a peaceful supply of fresh food every single morning. The resulting egg isn't a fragile, watery product. It's a dense, deep orange yolk, loaded with vitamins assimilated from the green grass and the insects pulled from the deep bedding of the barn. You pull premium-grade eggs daily, fueled by wild foraging. On the opposite end of the agricultural time spectrum, we find the pig. This powerhouse stands as the undisputed organic savings bank of the terrain. The pig is in no rush to grow. Their biomechanical job involves the patient collection of caloric energy across diverse climate seasons. Over 6 to 8 months of full life rooting over fresh dirt, the swine acts as a rustic digester of maximum capacity. They convert damaged tubers, leftover milkway, and deep meadow roots into dense muscle tissue and unbeatable lard. When the winter frost hits and the ground freezes solid, stopping all tillage work, the pig harvest provides the heavy caloric block. This ensures your family's nutrition during the months of plant dormancy and extreme cold, acting as the ultimate anchor for homestead survival. All this harvesting of abundance crashes in a matter of hours if we ignore the safety boundaries and the biological incompatibility between different animal families. Designing harmonious coexistence demands raising unbreakable field limits, based on muscle strength and the primitive instinct of each specimen. The pig possesses a ravenous omnivore instinct and a cervical push designed by nature to fracture compact roots and remove heavy rocks from the subsoil. If you allow an adult boar to walk without electrical restrictions near the low structures of the rabbits or the nest boxes of the breeding birds, a biological clash becomes imminent. The smell of a young litter or fresh eggs triggers their hunting drive. Prevention demands deploying reinforced perimeter fences and hot wire lines that impose an immediate perimeter of respect. You build a fortress of boundaries. The second front of bioprevention involves absolute water isolation. Ducks require swampy puddles to submerge their heads, soften their food, and keep their nasal passages spotless. But that same stagnant water acts as pure poison for the hens and the rabbits. A hen's feet lack protective webbing. Their plantar tissue macerates completely when stepping on bacteria-saturated mud, leading to severe foot issues. The dermal scales crack, allowing the invasion of pathogens that halt the foraging drive of the bird through painful inflammation. Constant moisture proves equally lethal for the fragile lung of the rabbit. The evaporation from nearby sludges saturates the air with spores and triggers sudden outbreaks of respiratory and digestive conditions. This biological oversight can ruin entire litters in a couple of cold nights. A functional farm requires sharp soil engineering and topographical foresight. You must structure diversion channels, steep slopes, or filtering trenches that push the pond moisture downhill. You keep it far away from the platforms of the herbivore mammals and the dry roosts of the chickens. By funneling the turbid water toward the perennial crop strips, you protect the lungs in the rabbit hutch. You'll guarantee firm, agile feet in your grazing birds, making the moisture work by fertilizing the dirt without touching the dryland residents. This structure is an invisible preventative barrier that protects the airways of your entire mammal herd and safeguards your poultry investment for the long haul. You achieve this without applying a single drop of commercial antibiotic, relying purely on intelligent pasture geometry. Past the spatial integration, the ecosystem faces the ultimate test. Extreme weather and economic instability. The four-species system stands out for an undeniable resilience against prolonged droughts, spikes in commercial grain costs, and surprise freezes. When the summer sun scorches the high meadows and the grass stops its regrowth rate, the enriched water circuit of the ducks sustains strips of fresh, green microclimate in the lower elevations of the terrain. Pigs and hens shift their hunting zone toward those shaded edges. They find damp roots, active earthworms, and succulent weeds right when the rest of the neighborhood suffers severe forage scarcity. You build a drought-resistant oasis powered by the natural hydrology of your waterfowl. The ducks keep the soil biology churning, even when temperatures soar past 95 degrees Fahrenheit and rain vanishes for weeks. Facing the assault of a polar cold snap, the thermal dynamics transform thanks to the mechanical work of the birds. The thick bed of carbon and nitrogen, built over months by the relentless scratching of the hens over the manure, initiates a hot, continuous fermentation. The colonies of aerobic microorganisms raise the temperature at ground level. This radiates a biological stove heat that protects the circulatory system of the avian claws. It prevents the freezing of nearby waterers. By keeping compact groups and rotating the shelters toward the sunny faces of the slope, the farm survives. You leverage the radiant heat of digestion and active composting inside the rustic barn. The animals become their own furnace, converting high-fiber inputs into ambient warmth that carries the entire herd through the harshest winter nights without tapping into the electric grid. Reaching scale and multiplying the flock numbers without fracturing this balance requires understanding the live carrying capacity of your dirt. A novice producer often breaks their pasture by introducing dozens of new specimens under the promise of a bigger harvest. This generates a biological conflict for access to clean space and fresh forage. Biological expansion gets measured by the manure absorption speed and the green regrowth of the soil. Introducing a second batch of finishing pigs forces you to plant legume-rich forage surfaces beforehand and increase the length of the breeding worm beds. The terrain must be prepped to support the trampling impact before receiving additional hooves. Scaling isn't about buying more animals. It's about expanding the biological infrastructure that supports those animals so the land digests the impact without turning into a barren dust bowl. The bird ratio must scale alongside the large plowing mammals. More pigs defecating on the meadow demands an increase in the scratching hen group without exception. You need them ready to scatter the hot organic mass instantly. This dries the feces in the sun, cutting the life cycle of the fly swarms. Every animal added to the farm must fulfill its service quota. They aren't just consumers, they're land workers. Replacement breeder rabbits take on the job of transforming suspended forage into high-purity, cold-pelleted manure. Ducks expand their raking perimeter, controlling infectious hotspots on the edges of the property. Each new heartbeat strengthens the community fabric instead of suffocating it through overcrowding. The system breathes, expands, and contracts based on the available biomass, never exceeding what the topsoil can actively metabolize in a single season. When you stop wasting valuable resources fighting nature and focus on orchestrating the nutritional flow of the species, scalability becomes a peaceful, steady process. Reducing dependence on synthetic powders and diesel machinery allows you to armor the field profitability for the long term. You conserve seasonal moisture with the filtering ducks. You break highly compacted soil profiles with the pigs. You boost aerial grasses with avian nitrogen. You produce ultra-efficient protein with the rabbits. The result creates an autonomous biological sanctuary. It builds a robust anti-crisis system that recovers soil fertility and converts daily management efforts into true nutritional dividends and abundance for the sharp breeder. You stop chasing symptoms and start managing the root causes of farm health, turning ecological principles into tangible heavy yields on the butcher block. Allying with the living machinery of nature guarantees an unbreakable sovereignty and a truly prosperous field for the smart producer. By respecting the wild foraging instinct, the anatomy, and the dignity of each animal, we transform exhausted dirt pens into a self-sufficient, highly productive ecosystem heavily armored against extreme climate crises. Let me know down in the comments which part of this system makes the most sense for your setup. If you got some value out of this breakdown, hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up so we can keep bringing you practical farm advice. To your success, fellow breeder. Until next time.